All right, here we go. Happy Friday to NBA Nation. CP the franchise in the building on today's show. Hey, this is another edition of NBA Weekly, man. We are talking about the biggest stories of the week. And joining us today, he is the creator, the founder, the CEO of Scoop B Radio, man. Longtime NBA analyst, NBA reporter. Also the head of Scoop B Enterprises. We got our guy Scoop B in the building. We got to talk about Ja Morant, and could his future in Memphis be over, or is it going to continue? We're going to hear from Scoop on that report. LeBron James making his debut coming soon. We're going to talk about what that means for the Lakers going forward, because there's a lot of hate going on for the King right now, so we got to talk about that. Plus, I got to get Scoop's reaction to my New York Knicks, man. 5-3 on the campaign so far on their championship quest. Lock in, hit the like button, hit the share button, and subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it, man. All right, man. Scoop, welcome, man. How you feeling, bro?
Man, first time caller. Honored to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely, man. Been a fan of your work for a long time, and it's a long time coming to bring you here to the NBA report on KFTV. But happy to have you on here, man.
Thank you for having me, man. And the feeling is mutual. Building from the ground up, we both can relate to that.
For sure. So let's get right into it, man. The news of the week, or one of the big stories of the week, rather. Ja Morant in Memphis. A lot going on in Memphis. Obviously, for Ja Morant, it's been the off-the-court stuff. For Memphis, it's been a lot of shuffle in the front office and in the coaching staff as well. But now you have an unhappy Ja Morant who seems to have taken issue with the head coach Tomas Isalo's new substitution patterns. You know, before it was a system, now it's a substitution patterns. Well, here was Ja Morant meeting with the media earlier this week, and here was the key soundbite from this week. Here we go.
Were you and the coaching staff able to talk about what happened Friday and move on?
Y'all asked that question to them, huh?
What about for you?
Y'all asked that question, so y'all know the answer to that.
Do you feel like everything's been resolved?
Yeah. They told y'all that, right?
Well, yeah, but
There
we
you
didn't
go.
hear it from you.
Obviously, they can't go and tell y'all something I ain't say.
You feel like you get the same joy right now that we used to see from you?
No.
Why not?
What can be done to get it back?
We'll see.
Do you think you have a good relationship with the franchise
Yeah.
in general?
Yeah. They told y'all that, right?
I didn't say anything about that.
If I had a good relationship, I wouldn't talk to him at all. So, and we had our combos over these.
Do you have any regrets about the way you played on Friday night in the second half?
You said what?
Do you have any regrets about the way you played in the game? I'm not talking about the
That's your home run question? Sound like
Yeah.
a bait question.
Sound like a bait question. What you think about this this soundbite from Ja and the overall situation in Memphis right now, man?
Well, I can tell you, I just dropped a report less than an hour ago over at scoopb.com where I basically have been on this all day and tracked down a couple of folks, and the direct quote from someone familiar with the whole process on the Ja Morant side told me, and quote, excuse my language, that motherfucker loves Memphis. Quote. And then throughout the course of the article, some of the other things that was said to me was he wants to win a championship in Memphis with the group that's there. He's an underdog and has an underdog mentality. And sometimes when you see his emotion and he's upset, it's because he cares. And that was further intimated to me that he's been loyal everywhere he's been since high school at Crestwood High School in Sumter, South Carolina, all the way through college at Murray State. So in answer to your question, if I was the Ja translator, I would take his off-cuff comments after a tough situation with the coaching staff and more as he's frustrated. And obviously there was a break in a chain of command. And, ultimately, after a game, players don't always want to speak to media and kind of answer certain questions, but that is his what he's supposed to be doing. So, he did answer, but maybe not in the way people would have expected. But all indications from people that I've spoken to out in Memphis is that Ja Morant still wants to be a member of the Memphis Grizzlies. And of course, there is speculation based upon other teams that are who could be interested, but as of now, that's the intel that I've gotten.
Well, we're certainly going to talk about some potential teams or potential trade destinations for Ja Morant. But this was his coach's comment. This is Tomas Lisalo's comments after the game and on Ja Morant's comments and talking about what he's looking for with this team. Here was the Memphis Grizzlies head coach.
I would say I have a lot of understanding for the players who say this. I think a lot of players have been conditioned throughout their career to play in longer stints and to go find that rhythm. And basketball, just like every other global team invasion sport, is evolving, and the demands on the intensity are higher and higher. And we are looking to also adapt to the times, and that's one of the things. And yeah, a lot of planning, a lot of feel goes into planning the sub patterns. I think what's often forgotten is what comes out, the actual sub pattern. It's to optimize results in the short, medium, and long term. That is the only goal of the sub pattern, to find a competitive advantage from it. There's some, like, it's a good question to ask, because you could say, okay, what are you maybe not getting if you're getting intensity and pace being one of our key components to some of our, especially here in the early season, you might be sacrificing some, let's say, chemistry within the units, because they might play shorter times together, or it might be more substitutions in an NBA game that already has a lot of stops in it. So I understand the concerns, and we're after the best overall result, like I said, in the short, medium, and long term.
So what do you think about that, man? Because obviously, this is the modern NBA, and we're seeing a lot of teams adapting a faster style of play, even with the Knicks, pace and space. Miami, they just brought in Noah LaRoche, formerly with the Memphis Grizzlies, assistant coach of the Memphis Grizzlies, pace and space. And now Lisalo is saying, hey, I want guys in short intervals going hard. You come off the bench, we're going to go deep into the bench. And as he said, this is for short-term benefit, medium, and long-term to preserve these guys for the home stretch. What do you think about that overall strategy?
Well, I mean, for some people, they may argue that this seems more like a JV substitution pattern than varsity or the NBA. And when I look at just Ja Morant, I think him being the number one option on that team for so long, when he speaks and when he complains, people listen, but I think there's a right way and a wrong way to go about it. And then when you got people telling other people what was said, how it was said, that distracts away from the whole process. I think that there is definitely a learning curve between both the coach and the player, and we've seen any iteration of that throughout basketball. The easiest thing, or the low-hanging fruit to compare it to, is Allen Iverson and Larry Brown in the early 2000s, when in addition to talking about practice, we were talking about being early, and also just playing off the ball with Eric Snow comparatively as the point guard. And I think in this instance, Ja has the advantage of still being the point guard and playing alongside other guys on that team. What I find interesting about this is, and kind of just telling the story of Memphis, is I remember the whole situation with Taylor Jenkins, and from everyone that I've spoken with who are familiar with Ja and just all that goes on with Ja and the Grizzlies, there was no ill feelings towards both he and Taylor Jenkins. In fact, when Taylor Jenkins was let go as head coach, Ja was asleep. He woke up and said OS. You know what OS is, when he found out that Taylor Jenkins was fired. I think that had there not been some other issues involving Ja that were extenuating outside of the court in the past, and had we not been talking about his narrative with his head coach, I think this would just be any random night of basketball against the Lakers when they played. But I think because of Ja's past, but also his past happening twice, but also the coach being fired, your reputation in this aspect precedes you. And it kind of diminishes the good that he's done. I mean, this is a guy that was the most improved player of the year. This is a guy that led the team that year, if I'm not mistaken, to a 56-26 record and a visit to the NBA's Western Conference Finals that year. And then after that was this decline. This is a player who had the same engagement, if not better, than Steph Curry did and was an asset to the league, and he's seemingly rebuilding. And it's like there's this tumultuous level of confusion that has nothing to do with the Grizzlies winning games. And I think that that needs to be the focus. I don't want to downplay the fact that this is a coach and a player butting heads, but at the same point, they're going to have to find a happy medium because I don't see either two of them going anywhere. Memphis needs Ja, Ja needs Memphis, and this is his second coach in a year. So at this point, if it continues, you have to wonder, are they going to start just saying it's Ja's fault because this is his second coach and there's been other instances? So I'm hoping that they can get past this and focus on winning games in the Western Conference.
I totally agree with you in that the off the court stuff combined with some of the what will look to be front office chaos, if you will, has created this mix, this toxic mix where every type of little friction here and there is magnified times 100. But they're also, again, all of it kind of seems like, is it the Grizzlies front office? Is it Ja? But from bringing in Noah LaRoche, then spending the money on Lisalo. You have two guys with two different visions. On a Taylor Jenkins, who's already the head coach of the team, you got his assistant coaches, bring those guys in. Now Taylor's gone. Ja's got all the off-the-court stuff. And now he's at odds with his coach in terms of the substitution pattern. So it just seems like one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing in terms of achieving the ultimate goal, which, to your point, is to win.
Yeah, it's to win. And I could look at it dually. For this to be so early in the season and this to be an issue, it's almost like you're an educated man, as am I. You make all your mistakes at the beginning of the semester. So by the time the midpoint comes and midterms are there, and then you're kind of good. You kind of know what the class looks like in August when everybody shows up for the syllabus. And then you know what the class looks like by November. You know the knuckleheads that skip class by Halloween, they're not going to make it. And then by December, they're definitely not going to make it. I kind of feel like we're in syllabus week of this. So if we get to, Christmas or the All-Star break and it's still an issue, I think that's when people are going to have to start making some decisions.
Yeah, and look, it's not an easy decision to make. Number one, the Memphis still owes him $128 million. And in this second apron era that we're in the NBA, it's not easy to trade for guys like that. I mean, we're talking about Giannis, we're talking about Ja Morant. Like, we need some time. Crunch numbers, put scenarios together, not just look at how this looks now and a year from now, but how this looks 3, 4, 5 years down the road because, we're potentially giving up draft picks, potentially, and then you have the salary cap implications of bringing on a player like this who, by the way, has the off-court stuff, but also, Scoop, hasn't really gotten better, bro. I mean, right now he's at a season low, early, so far, 7, 8 games of the season, 20 points per game, low on minutes. There's an article in The Athletic that said Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., your two cornerstones, are averaging 17 minutes per game on the court together. So, again, it just seems like one hand is not on the same page as the other in terms of Memphis trying to achieve that goal.
These aren't conversations you're having with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in Oklahoma, or even before winning a championship last season. Hell, as much as people want to throw dirt on LeBron's name every other day for something, it seems that both he and JJ Redick are in lockstep, as well as Luka, and everything for the most part has been in-house. These aren't conversations that you're having with champions or champion-esque people. There's I'll use a boxing example. These aren't conversations that you're having with Terrence Crawford, but these are conversations you're having with Gervonta Davis before a Netflix fight.
Yeah.
There's a difference between being a champion and being the popular guy. And I think at a point, even anybody saying anything bad about you, it's still a reflection on you because they shouldn't have anything to say because your focus should be diet, practice, the company you keep, your shoes, they're fly, or just things that things people should be saying positive things about you. The worst thing anybody should be saying about you is that you stay at the gym after everybody leaves.
Yeah.
And those things aren't being said. And to me, that's not championship behavior.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, man, because Ja's a guy, especially coming in from Murray State, man, just someone who took the league on by storm, just came up on the scene from the NCAA tournament and taking Murray State on a little Cinderella run. And it just seems to be a bit stuck in the mud. And when you look at his contemporaries, a lot has been said about, hey, SGA won his ring. Shai Cade Cunningham. His turnaround, what he single-handedly. I mean,
it's
look,
right now.
I mean, it's his team, right? And you're thinking about how does Detroit put the right pieces together, because Cade is ready to lead these guys to the promised land with the right soldiers. But with Ja, just the questions are abound. Can he lead a team? Has he peaked as a player? Can he become a better shooter as his game ages and as he ages and more physical wear and tear is on his body? And then does he have the right pieces around him? But to me, Scoop, the first sign what I think is going to be his ultimate ouster, when you trade Desmond Bane for 4 first-round picks. Yes, that's a lengthy haul. That's quite a haul to go get. But to me, that signals that Memphis, they will be ready to turn this corner eventually. Because that, to me, you're not signaling win now when you go trade one of your rotation players for 4 first-round picks.
Sure, and I watched that national game, the Orlando Magic and the Atlanta Hawks earlier this week on NBC. You see that the chemistry is there. They're still figuring that thing out. I thought that that trade benefited Orlando more than it benefited Memphis, because
Yes.
I feel like when you were going into the season, people talked about those two teams, Atlanta and Orlando, as the two teams that were like that fifth cup of wine at the holiday party that could potentially, I know this is a Knicks-friendly show, but could potentially be that fifth cup of wine at the holiday party to sneak up on, the Knicks or the Cavs. And, you see the chemistry developing in Orlando, but Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in Memphis is kind of like a babysitting service, if you ask me. You've won 2 championships in LA and in Denver, and then you're coming over there and then you're arguing with Jordan Poole about over a flop. Like, it's like, bro, like, for real. So when I look at Memphis and you talk about turning the page, then you start looking at teams like Toronto, especially in the sense that, from my reporting over the summer, there was a link between Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Toronto Raptors that ended up not going in that direction. And so, the Raptors do have young talent, but they'd have to part with a Scotty in order to make that happen. And I'm not 100% sure at present day that is a conversation starter if Memphis is still gung-ho on keeping Ja, and if Toronto is still gung-ho on, keeping Scotty Barnes. But to me, that's a piece that fits. I know that Carmelo Anthony had made mention on some show. I don't remember what show it was. It was actually on his podcast, actually. I read it that Miami would be a place. I actually don't think Miami would be the best spot for Ja.
I don't know if Riley just getting out of the Jimmy Butler saga. You think he's gonna want to get in with John Morant? Bring John Morant to South Beach? That might be toxic, Scoop. I don't know. It might be toxic. You bring John Wick to the 305.
I'm gonna say something to you that you will probably look at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
I saw a report from someone come across my timeline where they felt that Milwaukee would have been the best spot, would be a good spot for John Morant. And in that same vein and in that same demographic, I'll take that and raise you this. I think the Boston Celtics will be a good fit for you.
Whoa. That would be interesting. Maybe Simons, you put Simons' house, you put your picks in a deal.
Yeah, I do. And I think that nothing I've heard, it's just more just connecting dots. You would never think Ja would fit in a place like that. And I actually think that would rebrand his image if it works, 1. And 2, if he wants to win and he wants to be in a situation where he's around a winning organization that's foundationally built, why not go to Boston? I just think Boston would fit him in a way that people may think I'm crazy, but I'm crazy enough to believe it would work in the right setting. under Joe Mazzulla and with a team that has been to the finals multiple times in the last 10 years.
Yo, that would be kind of nasty. I'm not going to lie to you, man. You put Ja, obviously with Tatum next year, Brown, and White, and you potentially maybe you trade a Simons, a Xavier Tillman, a Hauser, a couple first-round picks. That could be a sleeper, man.
So I tell you what, with Grossbeck no longer in that majority owner role or very close to it ending, but this is what I'll say. This was a team that he built, and oftentimes, like you saw with the Dallas Mavericks, when Luka Doncic was traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, new majority governors like to create new systems that look like what they built. And I know just from the internal portion of it that over the summer, the Celtics were having conversations about potentially moving Jaylen Brown. That did not happen. They ultimately did move Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday. Those were the pieces, but the Boston Celtics could use some help, and I think that Ja would fit on that team, and would make them not only a merchandise seller exponentially, but also would get them some wins. He's not lazy. It's just a matter of right fit. So if you ask me today, if the Grizzlies were to make a trade, what team would benefit from them? I think it would be the Boston Celtics.
That's nice. I hear that. That'd be an interesting out-of-the-box idea for sure. I'm going to go with the Rockets, man. I'm going to go with the Rockets. And maybe it's a package of, again, with the second apron, it's hard to just throw that out there because especially with a player of a contract of that magnitude, sometimes you have to include 3-4 teams maybe to even get this going. But if you're thinking conceptually of, is it a Van Fleet because that contract would need to be included, a Reed Shepherd, can they try to fleece him, maybe throw Capella in there? You have the 2027 first-round pick from Phoenix and that Brooklyn Nets swap. So Rockets still have some draft capital to play with, even though they traded for Kevin Durant. But from my perspective, the Rockets in trading for Kevin Durant have already signaled we are moving the youth movement forward with vets and trying to win a championship. We're not just happy to be here rebuilding with youngsters. We're trying to take this thing in a league where parity is at an all-time high. So given their investment in Kevin Durant already, you have Van Fleet that's down. You still have a good young core. I think, hey, you add John Morant there, it locks you in to compete now. And then post KD years, your core of Ja, Amen Thompson, Alperen Sengun, you go forward with that. I think that would be an interesting one. With Ime, a bit solid foundation at the coaching spot.
You know what? And you bring up a good point with, because you look at Kevin Durant, that's about a 2 to 3 year window. I'd say 2 years. But I think that when you look at the Houston Rockets, they're actually doing the reverse of what the San Antonio Spurs are doing. You look at the Spurs, for example, they traded for De'Aaron Fox, but they have 3 or 4 point guards on that team, and they made it work.
That's right.
Built around Wemby. To me, Houston is doing an older version of that with KD, Amen Thompson, and all of the other fixings that you have on that team. It would be good. I just think the part that would kind of be disheartening. Where is my dictionary?
It's Friday, man. All good. It's all good. It's Friday.
What would be disheartening is to see Van Fleet go when he sacrificed to make sure that those pieces fit.
It's true.
So I think that if you're going off of loyalty, I don't see it. But if you're going off of winning and thinking that you can actually pull it off and get John Morant, go for it. I'm just concerned about fit but I would say distributing point guard, but Houston is playing basically Kevin Durant as the point forward.
Playing well so far. Third in the West. Yeah. And so that's another thing. It is certainly early, and maybe this is a midseason thing where all these teams kind of assess where they are. Mm-hmm. But how much of it do you think it's Memphis, with Memphis saying, hey, we have no intention of trading him, and they've said that from last year. And I was surprised to even hear that, their vote of confidence. But how much is them, negotiating here, saying, hey, he can be had, but you're going to have to pay here. Because at the end of the day, this is Memphis, right? This is a small market team who they have to build through the draft or strike the iron on a trade. They're not signing anybody.
I think Memphis right now is in a similar situation that the Phoenix Suns were in last season before teams started making calls. I was getting phone calls about any iteration last season of not just the Warriors contacting the Suns, but the Wizards, the Spurs, the Timberwolves, and many others. And once you start taking those calls and listening, the player's like, wait, I'm loyal to you, but you don't want me. I'm gonna look elsewhere. If you're the Memphis Grizzlies and your intent is to keep Ja Morant, you use Kevin Durant's situation with the Phoenix Suns as a cautionary tale. Because because the NBA community is a very small community, bro, you know that. Once one person hears that, it's like, oh, the gloves are off now. So I think that if their intent is to keep Ja, don't answer them calls from them GMs. But if your intent is to keep him, both coach and player are going to have to reach some level of a compromise.
Got to. Because at this stage of the game, look, we've seen star players and coaches have friction before. The basketball, it's not a perfect relationship when it comes to winning at the highest levels. You're going to have friction. You're going to have, sometimes things get physical like they did in the old days. So, to see a coach and player on the outs isn't necessarily uncommon, but it's just that Ja's comments kind of made it seem like, man, this is the beginning of the end here.
And I also think this. I think Memphis, like Oklahoma City. I spent extensive time in Oklahoma City. Not as much time in Memphis, but my druthers suggest that it's a smaller town where their sports is the sun rises, sets, and shines on the Memphis Grizzlies. And so something that's like at this is like this. And I think that by Thanksgiving, if they're winning, it gets thrown out the window until the next time. And then it's a conversation again.
That's a conversation.
I think it starts tonight. They got to win tonight. Tonight, they shut people up.
Winning cures all, man. Great points. Salute to everybody in the chat once again. Hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe to the channel. CP the Franchise here on the NBA Report with my guy Scoop B on the other side. I want to shout out some people in the chat right now. Daniel Beausejour, salute to you. Shout out to Coach Rubens. My 2 cents. He says he's waiting on a plane in Dallas, so safe travels to you. Glad we could occupy some of your time here. Thanks for the support. He's always in here. Stevie Nicks, salute. Shout out to Hooper and shout out to Math Madness. Will Latimer in the building as well. All right, Scoop. Also on the docket, man, this week, the King is returning. LeBron James nearing his Lakers return from the sciatic nerve injury that derailed the start of the season for the King, man. The King, 41 years old heading into this season, and it's no telling whether this is going to be his last or what the future holds for LeBron James as he's entering this year without any contract stability, as he normally does have, and no assurances in terms of his future. However, Lakers are off to a great start, 7-2. We all know that. Luke is having a great season so far, 40, 11, 9 assists, 2 steals so far. Austin Reeves having an all-star campaign in his prove-it year, 31 points, 9 assists. You got DeAndre Ayton is killing it, 17.4 points, 8 rebounds so far. But yet and still, the story is about LeBron James, Scoop. And, the hate for LeBron, to me, is just ridiculous, man. Because now the conversation is, he's going to ruin everything. He's going to ruin it all. For example, here was Kenny Smith yesterday on NBA Countdown speaking on LeBron and what the Lakers should do when LeBron comes back. Here's Kenny Smith.
Well, what is going to be the most interesting part is when LeBron comes back. Because the two guys who've had the most success while he's out, they're very ball dominant. So they need the basketball to make plays. They're playmakers, not play finishers. Play finishers is a guy who just waits, dunks it. Perk was a play finisher. Just let him dunk it. I'm just saying, you put him in the box right there. Like I'm driving and put him in a dunk spot. He's going to dunk it. But then there's guys who know, no, I got to create to get a rhythm. And now, can you have 3 guys on the same team be creators? I know, Coach, you had Jokic. You can't have 3 Jokic's.
Right.
It's impossible to have that because there's not enough ball movement and body movement to win. So it's going to be interesting to see what LeBron does and how he slides in. But what?
Your thoughts, Scoop?
Shout out to my brother Kenny Smith. I'm so happy to see his glow up first and foremost. I think Kenny kind of drove it home when he was talking to Coach Malone and said you can't have 3 Jokic's. When you look at Malone's role as the head coach on that team, he had 2 point guards on that court, and Jokic, and then also Russell Westbrook, who's tearing it up in Sacramento now. So comparatively, when you look at that Los Angeles Lakers system where you have both LeBron, you have Austin Reeves, and you have Luka Doncic, there's going to have to be some sacrifices made on that floor. And I really feel like the sacrifice is going to be Austin Reeves because Luka and LeBron James are so ball dominant. When you look at LeBron's career overall, I've only counted one time where he's actually had to adjust his style of play in order to accommodate his teammates. And it's about to be his second. And the first time was in year 2. Actually, year 1 in Miami. Year 2, he became more of a 2-3. But in year 1, he was didn't want to step on toes with Dwayne Wade. And I think when you look at LeBron and you look at what he'll have to do in that court with the Lakers next to Luka Doncic, it's going to be a shift. When I look at that shift, I would feel as though they would have to kind of go back to the way that the Cavs were playing with LeBron and Kyrie Irving. I'm by no stretch of the imagination comparing Austin Reeves to Kyrie Irving, but Kyrie Irving was able to adjust his play style to accommodate LeBron while still getting his touches. So when you're looking at that Lakers system, does Luka become the facilitator? Does LeBron become the facilitator? Or does Austin Reeves become the facilitator? My intuition says it's going to be all 3, but I still do think that Austin Reeves is going to have to sacrifice both minutes as well as scoring in order to make that happen.
Yeah, I do believe that there will be some sort of sacrifice, right? This is LeBron James at the end of the day, a high usage player, high usage superstar, all-star, wherever you want to, wherever you want to put him on the GOAT level. This is LeBron. But I also think that I just think the whole, KG and Paul Pierce, he's got to come off the bench, or Kenny, he's got to come off the bench, he's got to do this. I think it's overblown, man. We are talking about LeBron James, one of the smartest players of all time. To me, he is the guy. If there was ever a star to figure it out with Luka Doncic, it's going to be LeBron. Now, they had a half a season last year to get it together, fell short out west in the first round. It did not come through for them. But to me, even at 41 years old, this is still a top 10 player in the NBA. So
people play LeBron a lot on that too, by the way.
Yeah. So at 7-2, with the Lakers having a great season, to me, he can only help them. And yeah, it may take some time, and he may take time to ramp up. But to me, it can only help them. And without him, they have no shot anyway. So they have to take the chance and integrate him into this thing and make it work, because they have no shot without him to win the West or do anything championship-wise.
And I think that, but I also think this whole LeBron-splaining happens because of the way he was silent during the offseason, 1, and 2, because Luka is the star of the future, and people like being messy.
Yeah.
Come on, CP.
Yes.
And so I think that this is a good problem to have. It's like you would think that they got sent to the principal's office for being as good as they are, and actually them being as good as they are. The Los Angeles Lakers have a chance to win the NBA Finals. Like, as much as I have said from the beginning of the season, my thought process was that the Oklahoma City Thunder could repeat. The Los Angeles Lakers could legitimately make it to the finals representing the West and win it in a year that Houston is not full strength and Oklahoma has the pressure of repeating. I think that, so if you're the Lakers, you have done your due diligence, as well as LeBron doing his due diligence to take their time. And I think that's part of the reason why LeBron has not signed that extension or had much conversation with the Los Angeles Lakers. My reporting from the summer indicated that there were 4 teams that reached out to his agent, Rich Paul, including the Warriors as well as the Clippers.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Hey, man, as well as the Cavaliers. But this is what I'll say. If I'm LeBron, I take that pressure of not signing an extension and the pressure of winning a championship and be able to live life on my terms. If the Lakers win a championship at the end of the year, he can either retire on top or sign another big deal there or somewhere else.
Yeah, that is true, man. So, look, I think it's a good issue to have for the Lakers. Austin Reeves is playing phenomenal ball, but I've also long said that for the Lakers to have a shot, yes, LeBron has been a marvel at 40 plus. What he's doing has been, no one's ever done it before, no question. But to me, I've always felt like the Lakers had to get to a point where they can still win with him taking a back seat. And now is the opportunity to do so, to impact winning when you might be the tertiary option, which means using his size to rebound more, to get in the post, to defend more, to defend in the post, to get the Lakers bigger. DeAndre Ayton is doing a great job for their defense. A LeBron James added to that mix can only improve their defense, especially on the interior. Cutting. LeBron James, of all people, knows how to make his teammates better. That's why I have no doubts that this is going to work. Because of how smart he is, he will open things up for a Jake LaRavia. He will open things up for a Dalton Connect, for Austin Rivers, and for even a Luka Doncic without having the ball in his hands. He can still impact the game.
Years old, and I'll add this. For many people who think that bubble championship was a fluke, I still don't think LeBron has anything to prove to Los Angeles, but I will say this. Having spent time with that Lakers team during that year in 2019 and 2020, there was something special and different about them, particularly from a personnel perspective. I really feel like the Lakers actually shortchanged themselves by not retooling that team to actually properly defend.
Blew it.
I've talked with Danny Green and also Dwight Howard ad nauseum about that whole process and how disappointed they were. And I feel like the Lakers front office and ownership owes it to the Lakers fan base, not LeBron. The front office and their ownership owes it to the city of Los Angeles and their fan base to actually put something on the floor to win. Because there's no excuse that you had LeBron and Anthony Davis for as long as you did, and they only delivered that one championship. I don't think LeBron owes them anything else. They have enough talent on that court, on that roster, to win another one this year.
Yeah, and they mismanaged it during that run. Should have never let KCP, Caruso, those guys should have never been wearing another jersey outside of the Lakers. So there was a lot of mismanagement there by Pelinka. We'll see when the King returns and how the Lakers will fare, man. Certainly interesting to see where they're at in the West right now at 7-2. Austin Reeves has been. This is the thing. Like, you can't. Even though, yes, everybody will be taking a step back, just naturally they'll have to. Austin Reeves is playing on a whole nother level, man. I mean, talk about a guy who's betting on himself to go get the bag, and I'm rooting for him to go get it. He's playing at an all-star level, man. He's been lights out, man.
The flyest man out of Arkansas besides Bill Clinton and Joe Johnson, he's getting it done.
No question. No question about it. Once again, we're talking to Scoop B, man, of Scoop B Radio. Let me launch up the other side of the simulcast, because right now we are simulcasting on the NBA Report, and we are simulcasting right now on Knicks Fan TV, the number one show for the fans by the fans. So shout out to everybody watching on the NBA Report side, and shout out to everybody watching on the KFTV side. Happy Friday as we hit the reset on this simulcast. CP the Franchise in the building. Joining me today, he is the founder, the creator, the CEO of Scoop B Radio, Scoop B Enterprises, longtime NBA analyst and NBA reporter, literally been doing it since a child. Scoop B in the building, man. So we've been just kind of going through some of the main storylines of the NBA, but I got to get your thoughts, Scoop, on my New York Knicks. 5-3 on the campaign under the Mike Brown era, the pace and space era, as they call it. What's been your impression so far, man? 8 games in. What's been your impressions?
I like it. I think that when you look at 8 games in, that's like asking me to look at the first couple of days of school. I think it takes. I look at things in 10 game increments, so
Yeah.
we're close to about 10 games. I think right now the thing that has been impressive to me is Mitchell Robinson's hustle. I think that that is something that they were missing last season that they're getting now, in the sense that you can't just solely depend on Karl Anthony Towns to get you what you need. Karl Anthony Towns to me is such a special player that can legitimately play positions 3 through 5, but really 4 and 5 is what his role with the Knicks. But you know what you're getting with Brunson. You know what you're getting with Bridges, and I think it's all about putting it together. And I like what I've seen so far, but they got work to do.
Yeah, for sure. New season, new coach, a new system to get acclimated to. There's been an adjustment period. Karl Anthony Towns has admitted to that adjustment period. Josh Hart has spoken about that adjustment, adjusting to a new role and adjusting to playing through a multitude of injuries. And so far, coming out the gate slow, but he's starting to pick up steam. You mentioned Mitchell Robinson, who I'm going to get to in a short, but to me, the one guy who hasn't needed that much of an adjustment is the captain, Jalen Brunson. It's Jalen Brunson right now. He's playing at his all-star level, and had it not been for a little bit of a dip in the threes, he might be going, he's averaging 28 points per game right now. He could be up to 30 if he was making some of his threes. And, we started the NBA report speaking of John Morant and his inability to adjust, new system, new philosophy. Jalen Brunson has no issues right now, man. His dribbles per touch are coming down. His time of possession is coming down. And right now, he's flowing. He's facilitating the offense. He's running the offense when he has the ball in his hands. He's getting more catch and shoot opportunities, knocking those down. Jalen Brunson's looked phenomenal so far, man.
The epitome of an Escalade with Lamborghini doors. He is all-purposing, all-encompassing for that Knicks team. Is going to give you everything you need. He doesn't hurt you, and he helps you in every stretch of the imagination, from scoring and more. I think Stephon Marbury, Knicks legend, put this
Shout
on
out
his
Steph.
friend of the program. He put on his stories the other day. On his Instagram stories, he said Jalen Brunson is the point guard for the first 3 quarters, and then in the fourth quarter he goes off. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he knows when to take over, but he also knows when to play composed. I think he's in a good situation. I still think this is the same Knicks team from last year, just with more freedom and more oomph to be themselves. But I also think that health is going to play a big part for Brunson, because I remember at the beginning of last season, we were talking about everybody being healthy, and then wasn't Brunson the first to go down last year, and then it was Towns after the fact.
Yeah, well, yeah, Cap had he had the ankle injury. That was the most debilitating one, where he actually missed a ton of time, was the ankle injury later on in the year. And Towns' injuries were a bit kind of over the course of the season. He kind of picked up a lot of nagging injuries.
Right, and I feel like when you talk about pacing and breathing and just being in a certain system or mode, I feel like the Knicks are learning from last season. And last year there was an expectation that the Knicks were going to go to the finals. This year is an expectation they have to go to the finals. But you got to protect your Escalade with Lamborghini doors. You can't just have it sitting out in front of Marcy Projects. You got to have that in the garage. So you're protecting your investment, and you're easing them in, knowing when to sit them, when to rest them. I think it's the right level of spacing and balancing.
Yeah, and right now, again, early, we'll see. I like to, you say you like to look at things every 10 games. Me, I'm more so like every 20 games. So that's when I'll kind of do my report, chop it up in fourths, and see where they are after the first quarter as I define it. But so far, they're getting some early returns from Mike Brown. As you said, getting your guys to the postseason healthy is a big challenge. Even though the Knicks got there relatively healthy last year, it kind of seemed like by the time they got to Indiana, they really didn't have much left in the tank. And so this is where Mike Brown comes in, because he's not only implementing a system that is a little bit less predictable, and we're seeing that the Knicks ball movement has been incredible so far, top 10 in passes made so far, but he's also going into that bench and being rewarded. Clarkson, Hart, Deuce, picking it up.
I think it's interesting you bring up the Pacers, right? So when you look at while I do look at things every 10 games, I also look at things incrementally through Thanksgiving, and then from Thanksgiving to Christmas, and then Christmas to the All-Star break. And I feel like after the All-Star break, you can kind of tell who the top 3 seeds are, top 4 maybe, and then who's your David and Goliath, the David within the Goliath and David story, like a Sixers team in the early 2000s when he went to the finals, or in this case, an Indiana Pacers team last year. And I feel like when you looked at the Pacers last year, they were unafraid. But just like they started off slow and they ended up building momentum when they knocked out Goliaths in Cleveland and Milwaukee and then the Knicks, I feel like the way to counter that is to kind of play the way you're playing, the way the Knicks are playing and spacing things out, because somebody's gonna get hurt, man. I don't wish that on anybody. I just think this year of having expectations for the Knicks just smells different than last year because you've been there.
Right.
When you've been there and you fail, you have a better understanding of what it is to be the top dog the following year, and then to kind of know what ebbs and flows are going on throughout the course of the season, and you recognize that from the year before. I feel like to go back to that point about Brunson, I actually feel like Brunson getting hurt last season actually benefited the Knicks because they saw what it was like to play without him and they simulated it. And it actually made Mikal Bridges a better player because it allowed himself to see what the other team's offenses were giving him, and he was able to adjust accordingly.
Yeah, and McAlbert's just having an outstanding year. And you mentioned the word dog. I got to bring in my guy. I got to evoke my guy, the dog, OG Anunoby, who is having an outstanding year. He led the Knicks in scoring against the Timberwolves, 25 points, 8 rebounds. He was the player of the game, no doubt, averaging 18 on the campaign, 40% from 3. He's playing at an all-defense level right now. When we look back at the trade, man, I'm looking at the Raptors message boards, and they're going, they're a little bit down on my guys, RJ and Quickly, but here in New York, OG Anunoby he's really shining, man. He's having a fantastic year once again.
Yes. I'm happy to see OG Anunoby play in a system where it benefits him. But I also feel like he can play in any system. I think he's so very underrated as a player because he's not loud and obnoxious. He just shows up and does what he needs to do. And but he fits in a Knicks system that's predicated upon defense. But it's also got some scorers within that defensive schematic. So I like OG Anunoby. RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly, I think they did their time with the Knicks, and the Knicks moved on to bigger and better. I think Toronto has to be patient though, because this is not an Atlantic Division team that's going to run things. The Nets aren't running things. The Raptors aren't running things. I think the Raptors are going to have a better showing than the Nets are this year. The Sixers, I think, are going to probably be the second tier within the Atlantic Division, and unless the Celtics have something up their sleeve. But I think Toronto Raptors fans have to be a little bit more patient because this isn't what RJ and Quickly asked for either.
Yeah. That is true. The Ingram trade was a little bit of a head scratcher, so they just seem to be a team that's just kind of work in progress and kind of just going with the flow right now. But as it relates to the rest of the East, obviously the Knicks are hyped at the top, and Cleveland's up there at the top. We mentioned the Celtics earlier, just in terms of could they make a splash in a John Morant deal? Who else do you think in the East could potentially by the deadline or so make a move? Because after that top tier, it's wide open, man. When you think about Milwaukee and Philly's playing very well right now with the guys that they have. Paul George hasn't even played yet. Will the Pacers make a move even though they've been losing without Halliburton? Who do you think's that team that could make a jump by the deadline?
I think the Pacers would make plausible sense to me, just because nobody's expecting much from them. We talked about Boston. I still do see Boston making some sort of move because there were things, iterations of moves that that front office had discussed closing the season and even in the off season, and they didn't really, other than Porzingis and Holiday, there wasn't a huge any other moves with their stars.
Mm-hmm.
I still do think that the Anthony Simons, the intrigue of him is interesting. But I think that the Pacers and the Celtics in the Eastern Conference will probably be the two teams. I also look at Atlanta, particularly with their point guard being out for a little while. And then Um, if they're looking to make a deep run in the playoffs as a sleeper, I would envision they would be looking to make some sort of move also. Those are some of the teams that I think could make moves. But as you made mention of in the Eastern Conference, I think so much was made of the offseason with Giannis and his next move, if there's a move, that everybody just thought it was a preconceived notion that the Knicks were going to run everything, the Cavs were going to run everything, and they forgot about Milwaukee. And I think Milwaukee has something to prove, and they showed that. What was that, a week or two ago against the Knicks?
Yeah, ran them out the gym in the second half.
Yeah, they did. And then, I also think that Orlando, just the study of them over the last few years, that Orlando team reminds me so much of Boston in 2018. I think it was when they kept going toe to toe with LeBron's Cavs and they were losing and learning. I think they're still missing a piece or two. I was watching that national game the other day. I'm not sure what that piece is, but I would imagine that they would be making a deal sometime at the deadline as well.
It wouldn't shock me if Detroit jumped in the mix, man. Especially the way that Cade is playing. They're getting good play from Durant and Isaiah Stewart playing in the front court together. The Ivy thing, they haven't been able to evaluate that just yet. But I look at Detroit, they're sitting there with some assets. They did sign Duncan Robinson and Caris LeVert to, in this landscape, what would be considered more flexible deals for them. But with their capital, I'm just wondering if Trajan Langdon's sitting there looking like, hey, does he call his boy Joe Dumars and say, hey, what do you want for that guy that's out right now with a hamstring injury? He's always out. But could this be a time to take a low risk, high reward move on Zion?
Williamson, are you?
What's that?
You're not talking about Zion Williamson, are you?
Yeah. I'm talking about Zion, man.
It's interesting. My reporting over at Scoopy.com. Late last Friday, something about Fridays. Last Friday, I put something out about Willie Green. This Friday, my reporting about John Morant. But what I can share with you is that there is definitely an interesting power struggle in New Orleans with the Pelicans, with their head coach. From just conversations that I've had with people in the know over New Orleans, it seems that they wanted him gone last year. Talking about Willie Green. And the only person on that team that spoke well of him, and he's no longer a member of that team, is CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum wanted to keep him in position in New Orleans. But the other factor is that Willie is well received by Gail Benson, the majority owner. And he's in a situation where he's remaining from the past infrastructure. And it's also my understanding that Gail Benson and David Griffin were at odds. And in order for Willie to have stayed, there was an agreement that was made that Willie has to stay, Griffin has to go, and Dumars and Willie Green have to figure things out. And that's where we are now. But ultimately, Gail Benson has the last say. Every indication that I have gotten in New Orleans suggests that Joe Dumars and Zion Williamson are on the same page. There was conversations going into the draft where the Pelicans were monitoring Giannis's situation with the Bucks aligned with the draft. And ultimately, Dumars and Zion Williamson figured things out. And so with that being said, every indication I've gotten as recently as 2 days ago suggests that Zion, as well as Joe Dumars, as well as Gail Benson, are on the same page in New Orleans. I don't see that happening, but as we mentioned with the Memphis Grizzlies, you dangle the right thing, you answer that call, things could change. I have no indication that is a factor, but it would be something attractive to look at. I'll just say Zion Williamson or the Detroit Pistons, that's a squad.
Yeah. Look, I think again, just from a basketball standpoint, because I got Knicks fans going to be in the chat like, CP, don't be advocating to make Detroit better. But yeah, they're very territorial. But I'm just saying, from an outside looking in, from a fly on the wall in the NBA landscape, for Detroit, again, you got capital. You have a low risk opportunity here to make a splash because as is. Look, they can overachieve only but so much. I don't think look, the Pacers made it all the way to finals. I don't see that with Detroit. I just don't see them with the right firepower to get there. I think it's a move worthwhile looking into.
But I'll say to you, the Pistons could not cut the cake against the Knicks in the playoffs in the end. A healthy Zion running them out the building. What is he, like 23, 24, 25, somewhere between 23 and 25?
Yeah.
He's the spark plug as a scorer that they could use. I think you bring up a very both logical and plausible point when you talk about Duncan Robinson, particularly at the deadline and or the buyout market where teams need three-point shooters for hire. He fits that mold. Miami, disappointed that didn't work out, but you said something that really made a lot of logical sense. An attractive three-point shooter, attractive on the court, would definitely be beneficial to any team looking to compete. Is that New Orleans? I don't know.
Yeah.
The way it's phrased to me, the Pelicans, the ownership of that ownership group, football comes first. Benson also an owner of the
Saints.
With that being said, look, they might, just because I know football is their first. I haven't heard anything to suggest that, however.
Well, we'll have to keep an eye out on things on this Friday here. NBA Cup is back tonight, man. What are you thinking about some of the matchups tonight? Have you taken a look at the schedule?
No, I was busy breaking stories.
Well, one for me, I think Houston and San Antonio are going head-to-head tonight, man. So you got Wemby and Sengun shooting a fair one tonight, man.
That's going to be a good one. I'll tell you this specifically because of the backstory. You said it was Houston and San Antonio tonight, correct?
Yeah.
And so I can tell you that many people thought that Kevin Durant was going to go to the San Antonio Spurs and that the Spurs were going to trade Phoenix's second pick to them in order to get him. And I'm told that San Antonio never wanted to trade that second pick to Phoenix and promised Dylan Harper that they were going to draft him because they wanted to focus on their youth movement. And so if I'm Kevin Durant, I take that as a revenge game. You didn't want me, I'm going to show you what you're missing. But if I'm San Antonio, I'm feeling like I have something to prove if I'm Wemby, particularly because some people compare Wemby to either Bobo or Kevin Durant and some of the other guys that are tall and lanky, even Giannis is at large. So that's going to be something very interesting to look at. San Antonio's youth movement playing against a more seasoned Kevin Durant with the fixings of an Amen Thompson and some of the other guys as well as Sengun. Sengun is playing lights out. Many people look at him as a blue-collar Jokic. I think he's his own man, and I enjoy watching his style of play.
You got some interesting ones here. So they'll tip off at 7:30, a little bit earlier for those two Midwest teams, or if you want to consider them that. Then you got Golden State and the Nuggets. So that's the Amazon Prime doubleheader. So that's a good matchup. A Magic and Celtics going at it at 7 o'clock. So they'll tip off in just a little under 1 hour. You have the Bulls and the Bucks. Battle of Central Division supremacy there, and I think the Knicks will be able to gain ground in the loss column on one of these teams, whoever loses. So I think those are pretty much the highlights of tonight's NBA Cup matchups. Rockets, Spurs, Golden State, Nuggets, Magic, Celtics, Bucks, Bulls, and that's pretty much it.
I'm looking forward to Bucks Bulls.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. That's gonna be a good one, man, for sure. Let the people know where they can find you and anything coming up on the pipeline.
Scoopy Radio, available on streaming platforms. We just dropped an interview with Darryl Strawberry yesterday.
Shout out to Darryl, man.
Sir,
he just got pardoned today. Did you see that?
He did. He got pardoned, and praying for his wife, whose health is getting better. So we dropped that this week. I was actually featured on Forbes.com this week.
Nice, congratulations, man.
Sir, because of Scoopy Radio and the story there and how we got started. And so, my team and I are definitely excited to start the season and just continue to grow and travel on the road next week. So you'll be seeing a lot of new stuff pumping on Scoopy.com as well as Scoopy Radio. Check that out on all streaming platforms as well as Scoopy.com.
There you go, man. Well, continue to keep up the good work. You're a guy who's always on the grind. I'm always watching, man. I'm always tapping in and just seeing how you're moving and seeing how you maneuver. And you've been doing it for a decade long, so more than that. So congratulations, man. Keep it up. And it's the first time here with us, but won't be the last. And we appreciate your time, man.
Thank you for the opportunity to be myself.
Yes, sir. All right, once again, that was our guy, Scoop B, man. Salute to everybody in the chat. Hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe to the channel. Shout out to Scoop for joining us today. And shout out to everybody watching on the KFTV side. We're not done. We got to get to our fan mailbag show on the KFTV side. On the NBA Report side, we are going to shut it down. We will see you guys on the NBA Report next Friday, covering the week at large around the NBA. So shout out to everybody who's watching on the NBA Report side. If you're on the NBA Report side, come on over to KFTV so we can finish up today's show. And if you guys are on KFTV, make sure you guys are going over to the NBA Report to subscribe to the channel. All right, so NBA Report, we're going to log off now. We'll see you guys next Friday.